Hey guys, how you doing today? Just getting off work, heading home, right? Doing the typical recording. Oh geez. What's been banging around my head today? Haven't been sleeping very well. things things seem to kind of be going off the rails a little bit, if you ask me. It just seems like everybody's walking around like, oh, everything's so normal, and oh, la-di-da, and like we just crossed 500 cases here in Ontario. That puts us about as high as the peak was for the first wave with COVID. It just seems like it just seems like no one's reacting. And it just seems like when I talk to people, they're just not, there's like this, oh yeah, kind of sentimentality or the sentiment that's going around. And I'm not permitted to express meaningfully my deep concerns about what's happening. And it just seems like our media and our press are really not putting putting our government or putting our officials, they're not pressing on them, and they're not saying like, okay, hey, we were in lockdown by this time, right? Like, we were locked down when the numbers were this high. What's the plan? And it's deeply concerning to me that Doug Ford's plan does seem to be spread the virus around as fast as possible. And anytime there's what they're calling a breakout, i.e. someone actually goes and gets a test and finds out that they've got it, then we'll shut it down, right? The goal here isn't to ensure that we save lives or ensure that we look to people's health or any of that kind of stuff. The goal does really seem to be got to keep that economy going, right? Got to keep that economy going. And I cannot express to you how stupid I think this is. That like the economy has become a real propaganda slogan. You got to save the economy with absolutely no awareness or critique or analysis or anything like that of what some people enjoying themselves. Can't ignore it. Some people enjoying themselves on the street. God bless them. But so this phrase, the economy, is said with absolutely no analysis, no critical thinking skills are used. We just say the words, the economy, and it's like evoking the name of God, right? It's like evoking the name of Christ. That like, no, we have to do it for the economy. And if anybody actually stops and goes, excuse me, what's the economy? Then you're instantly a heretic. Like, you're instantly not allowed to analyze, ask these questions. And if you actually do the work and you actually do find out what the economy is, what you're really looking at is you're looking at a market system dominated by a small group of billionaires who are trading wage slaves amongst one another. And that's the economy that they're attempting to save. And I'm standing here as a communist going, oh no, we should be dismantling that economy. Like, locking that economy down would be a perfect opportunity for a rational government to restructure itself in a way that is actually rational and makes sense for the bulk of the populace, as opposed to a small group of sociopathic billionaires who are literally now saying, it looks like, some of you will die, and that's a sacrifice we're willing to make. That Farquaad scene from Shrek has become something of a truism here in Canada now, that when we initially went into lockdown, it was done in a state of panic. And in that state of panic, our political leadership was permitted to act like human beings, was permitted to have things like empathy and compassion, was permitted to find that little shred of love and humanity in their heart, and that empathy and compassion for their fellow man. And now they've gone through a period of planning, and the capitalist class has made it very clear that that empathy and compassion and that basic humanity for one another is not to be shown again. And it really does seem like the decision is to simply shrug and declare that the economy, which again is a small cabal of billionaires who have seized control of the basic mechanics of the society, and who have bribed politicians in order to maintain their control of the society. And they understand that if they go through a lockdown period, especially over Christmas, that the government will be forced to step in and seize control of the mechanisms of power away from the sociopaths, from the capitalist class. They understand that, and so they can't permit that. And so instead of actually going into lockdowns again, which we, again, as a reminder, when the numbers were this high, we were already in lockdown. And we should be in lockdown again. Like, the medical professionals were saying that they weren't comfortable with opening the society back up at all until we were sub 200. Now we're at 500. And so there is an argument to be had that, well, now we know more, right? Now people are wearing masks more. Now people are complying more. But this is entering like a nonsense kind of argument, because if you don't act seriously as your leadership or as your government, then your citizens don't act seriously, right? Like, when the mask mandate came in and everyone had to wear masks indoors, it wasn't a suggestion, right? It was a very clear directive that was put down. Legislation was passed, right? Official statements were made by very official people, and it was very clear that your compliance with this would be considered mandatory. And most people across the spectrum, even the people who are against it, do comply. But if they had have said, wearing masks is a good idea, wear masks, I guess, and then just left it at that, people wouldn't be wearing masks. Like, who gives a fuck, right? But because it's a law that has to be enforced, then businesses will enforce it. And once the businesses themselves start to enforce it, then it is something that is taken care of. But if you don't actually do these sorts of things from the leadership position, then people will just ignore it, right? Like, and this lackadaisical, lazy, no-plan response that's coming out of the Ford administration, like, what they literally are saying is, and their plan is, leaked by the CBC, their plan is, well, when a break happens, when there's a breakout that happens, we'll do lockdowns then, and we'll do regional lockdowns reactively. So what that effectively is saying is, after people get infected and after people die, after that happens, then we'll do lockdowns. So we'll engage in the performance of empathy and compassion after the damage is done, so as to prevent anyone else from getting it. But the first group of people who get it, they have to be sacrificed. That's fundamentally what's being said. That the people who get the coronavirus because of the government's ineptness and unwillingness to go into lockdowns, because they've sold themselves out to a capitalist class that demands a blood sacrifice. These people are sacrifices to a death cult. And that's what it is. And I mean, the Trudeau government is making it very clear that it has no intentions to take seriously the fact that capitalism is in a collapse. It has no indication that it's going to seriously challenge the power and authority of the corporate state and of the capitalist class. The Trudeau government is, in fact, as we're going into a second wave and as it's coming up, their new budget has a very clear end date for people who are receiving benefits. So it's very clear that they have no intention to actually do anything structural to help the population. And in fact, they're making it very clear that people will be abandoned, right? People will be abandoned. We will leave people behind. That's a guarantee. It's baked in. And the media, of course, is completely silent about this. They don't care whatsoever. I am yet to see a commenter actually point out that the Trudeau plan abandons people. I'm yet to see a commenter. That's not true. There's been one commenter in the Toronto Star, Bruce McKinnon, I believe, who has actually pointed out that the Doug Ford's plan is not a plan. Yeah, it's literally just allow the virus to spread and then do a little performance dance in the spot where it happened. And that's how I'm going to take it, and that's how I do see it, that when a breakout happens, when people are diagnosed with the coronavirus, the death cultists come in and do a ritual, right? They do a ritualistic style of cleansing now that the sacrifice has been complete. And they are willing to lock down one building or lock down this or that in a very... and do whatever, like, hey, nani, and whatever they need to do to convince a gullible and exhausted populace that, oh, yeah, we really do care. Yeah, we really do care. No, we're not going to do lockdowns preventatively in order to stop this virus from spreading. We're just going to let it spread, and then when it explodes in a school or in a retail environment or in a church or in a restaurant, then we'll lock that restaurant down or that church down or that retail establishment down. That one particular place that had that one thing. And we'll do that case by case by case, so the virus will spread because the virus doesn't care about any of that. And the people who die from that are the people who have lifelong health difficulties and the suffering that'll occur. Those are just sacrifices. And that's basically where we're at, and it's very disappointing. It's very disappointing. It's been a very disappointing to realize the depths to which our political class and our political establishment is completely bought by these corporate forces who clearly do not care about the populace, who clearly are interested in maximizing profits for themselves, and who from day one were willing to sacrifice lives. And now they've managed to convince their purchased politicians that their initial reaction of humanity and compassion was a mistake that won't be repeated. My position is very clear. The system needs to be destroyed. The system we should have started dismantling this system 20 years ago with the climate change crisis, once it became obvious that the capitalist class was going to double down on its death cult ideology. We should have begun dismantling it then. and replacing it with a stable, rational system that works on behalf of the citizenry. But the capitalists have made it very, very clear that they will do everything they can to maximize the damage, not only to the populace, but to the environment itself. We're going to pay dearly. We're going to pay very, very dearly for the decisions we're making now, for the inaction and the ineptness of our political class. And it's like a reflection of what's happening in the climate change conversation, right? Any gains we can make are going to immediately be pulled back and lost because the populace has grown exhausted and complacent. Or they gullibly believe that the leadership, that their leaders are actually interested in helping them, while they clearly are not. Like, obviously are not. We're to a point now where it's childishly simple to see that that's the case. And the arguments that come out by the acolytes of capitalism are childish now. Like, really, really childish. Like, childish statements. Like, oh, capitalism is the best system in the world, gave you everything you've got right now. It's like, no, workers did that. Right? Black slaves built America. Capitalism only brought them there by force. Like, this sort of celebration of the death cult. And you just see the propaganda that comes out of their mouths. You can see that they don't know anything about the subject. And the second you start talking about it, they just lose. They can't actually, it's not actually a conversation. You can't actually have a conversation with capitalists because they're so indoctrinated in obvious ways, right? In obvious ways. And it's become very dangerous, which is why, like, in many ways, like, while we should continue the fight to try and actually do something about climate change, to do something about these coronaviruses, and the future pandemics that are likely going to continuously hit us, really, like, what I am attempting to do here, rally people to try and get some form of organization to get anything going, sure. But really, like, this is an opportunity for me to explain to the kids who are growing up now, like my nieces and nephews, why we went insane. Why we saw what reality was and refused to do anything about it. Because that's obviously what's happening. And this period is going to stand as a true testament to the arrogance and hypocrisy of humanity. That we have everything that we need. We live in abundance. We have the technology. We have everything to feed, clothe, shelter, ensure that everyone has everything taken care of while minimizing the damage to the environment. We have all of the technology and know-how and ability to do that. We've just been completely dominated by greedy sociopaths who own so much and control so much that they're just able to confuse and misinform and indoctrinate the populace to divide and conquer it, while the system they worship destroys even them. That's the end of me, guys. Like, share, subscribe. Go meet your neighbors. Have a drink. Have a high five. I don't know. Smoke a doob. Do what you do.